Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me, as always...
Oh shit, I had a quote and I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I love that quote. I love that part of the movie.
Oh, I wrote something down. I can't even find it now.
I
Whatever.
thought you were just going to start singing Titanium.
I don't know it well enough, but I was gonna. I had one.
Down, but I won't fall.
I'll just say. I just like this one. But behavioral issues are linked to high IQs. So anyway, Eddie of Edward's Truth.
Great. And today we're talking about M3GAN. Or M3GAN. Yeah, M3. If Scream 4 can be Scroforum, and 7 can be 7N, and 13 Ghosts can be 13N Ghosts, then M3GAN can be M3GAN.
M3GAN, absolutely.
Yeah.
I back you up on this 100%.
Thank you.
You have my support.
And this new release, obviously, it was January 6, 2023. This is our first new release of 2023. So we've both seen it. We both have opinions that we don't know about. You did the typical Instagram post wow thing that could mean anything. So I'm very curious. Please open the floor. What did you think of M3GAN?
Ultimately, nutshell, I think it succeeded at pretty much everything that it set out to do. I didn't feel it, breaking any particular new ground in the genre or even the doll horror subgenre. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I would definitely recommend it to people. So that's my nutshell. How about you?
Great nutshell, yeah. I agree because this did exceed my expectations. I think what I really liked about it is that it had a lot of camp. Like the camp factor was high with this one, and I did not expect that. I was more so thinking it was just going to be another by the numbers killer doll movie, but it really kind of this was hilarious. Like I was laughing a lot, and I'm like the king of like seeing a movie and not having any sort of emotional response. I just kind of sit there very stoically, and constantly there was just things that, I like to think that they were unintentional, but I feel like a lot of it was intentional, but it still worked really well. I will say that I feel that this movie held back quite a bit, and I'm not just like talking specifically about the fact that it's PG-13, like we will get to that, but not even so much the lack of bloodletting, but more so just like the actual story content and how far things could have gone. I feel like they held back. But I think the biggest thing, like what's the most baffling to me, because I think this movie's okay. Like I would recommend it. I don't think that it's should be any higher. Like my score for it on Letterboxd is 3.5. I think that's perfectly generous for it. But the fact that this has a tomato meter percentage of 95 is astonishing to me. That is like, I question. I'm not, obviously the way Rotten Tomatoes works, it's not the same as like what an IMDb score is, or I don't know how Metacritic works, so I wouldn't even like get into that. But it's just like, how many critics liked it versus how many didn't. And it's just it's just baffling to me that a movie like this that is so basic and simple and not breaking any new ground is like has a better score than arguably like any what was your favorite horror movie that came out last year, for instance, if you can think of it.
If you're with your favorites and everything, but let's just say Pearl's up there.
Pearl?
X is up there. Any A24 release, I have a feeling would have a lower tomato score than that.
X has 94%. So that has 1% less than 1% less than than M3GAN. Pearl has
M3GAN?
91%. So by critics' standards, like if we're going by Rotten Tomato math, M3GAN is a better movie than Pearl and X, and probably Scream 5. I'm assuming, like, let me see what that got 76%. So it's just, I don't think that M3GAN is better than any of those. So it's just funny to see like when the critics kind of make allowances for certain things and when they're more critical.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think also that tomato meter rating and everything like that is so incredibly laced in with other things, like is a review perceived to be mostly positive or mostly negative? What if it's mixed? How do you determine that it's a rotten or that it's fresh? So I mean that whole thing is completely subjective. But it does in a sense like make sense to me though that even the two higher ranking horror movies on the tomato meter of 2022 are just below this one. This does make, I can see where this would invite that whole controverse and the the normies who don't who aren't entrenched in the genre of horror, who just kind of like, what are we seeing this weekend? Oh, a horror movie. And then they go get their popcorn and they get their soda and they're on their phone through the trailers, and then once it starts they just it's a good popcorn movie. Like, I mean, it makes sense that like the masses, I think, would have a more positive response as opposed to maybe more niche perspectives like yours and mine.
I definitely feel like this is more of a comedy than straight up horror. Just given given the camp value of it.
I would never want to sell it on that to anybody, just because I wouldn't want to spoil the fact. Because I think the second you tell someone that before they go in, they're expecting it to be like so funny, and then the parts that are funny, they're going to be funny. But I think what I liked about it, coupled with the humor, is the fact that it's also a lot of my laughter came out of response to knowing M3GAN and knowing who's saying the wrong thing to her, who's behaving the wrong way in front of her, and who's going to get punished. There were so many moments where she would just kind of turn her head and watch someone, and I'd be like, oh, this person's in trouble. Yeah. I mean, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
I think my favorite was the kind of like the death glare that she gives the neighbor after like the dog has kind of roughed her up a little, and she's got like she looks like she just crawled back home from a one night stand. In the bush, she's got little bits of leaf in her hair, and it just like it's all like frizzy. She was really giving me like Mary-Kate Olsen. I mean, not just that,
and
but
not
like,
Ashley.
Just specifically, we'll say Mary-Kate.
Okay. I got Mary-Kate.
Maybe if that's the sequel, there will be two of them together, and then it'll be M3GANs. Actually, can we just talk about this right now? Of just like, what if this does go on to be a franchise? Like, what are the sequels called? Because I saw a few funny ones online, and I think my favorite was M3 again. Instead of GAN again. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that's sweet. I can't.
Because for all intents and purposes, like if they were doing like the Scriphorum route, this would be the third movie by making the E3. I mean, like, I'm just looking at it right now. It doesn't look like a 3. It's just like the 3 lines. But if you go on IMDb, this movie is literally listed as M3GAN. So that's why I call it M3GAN.
Well, because it stands for. I wrote it down. I can't find that either. I can't find anything. But Model 3. So there is a 3 there. Yeah. Generative Android. So the AN even is kind of a cheat because it's stands for Android. Yeah. But Model 3 Generative Android is what her real name is. M3GAN for short. That was another thing. There were so many great moments that could have been. This is why the movie I think is successful. On one hand, is that they have a very unsympathetic heroine at the helm of it with Allison Williams' character, Gemma, who I don't find myself necessarily. It's not like I'm not rooting for her, but I am having a really good time judging the shit out of everything she's getting wrong by acquiring this child. I'm like, I don't know shit about raising children, but I can watch her and cross my arms and go, that ain't the way to do it, honey. Like, if you don't want her touching your collectibles, maybe have some toys waiting for her. I mean, what do you think she's going to see when she sees like this one shelf of collectibles like sitting there that are not to be touched and are not to be played with? She's a kid. She's going to want to play with them. So give her something to divert her attention.
Honestly,
so she doesn't want to play with your shit.
I hated the kid too.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
Yeah, Katie.
Katie?
I don't know. They were both like, that's the thing. Like, this is, I see like a lot of comparisons to Child's Play. Of just like, like Andy and Karen, the mom. And I just feel that like what works so well in Child's Play is that, we really have a sense of who these people are, and they feel like real people, and we care about them. Like we can see their suffering. Whereas here it's just kind of like, it's so on the nose. Like everything is, it's basically presented there. Like the kid got into a car accident where the parents died, and now we're like, the tragedy was all kind of like sensationalized in a way. Whereas in Child's Play, and I don't want this to be a thing of like M3GAN versus Chucky, but just like in Child's Play, we talked about that in that episode where we don't really have like, there's a whole scene where Andy has a conversation with, I forget if it was like Chucky or his mom. It's just something about like daddy in heaven, or like he talked to Chucky about, or like I think it was like Chucky said that daddy sent him from heaven or something like that. That's just like so deep for what that movie is, of just like that whatever tragedy that this family has suffered, which is never really like on the surface, but it's there. That there's obviously issues like this woman is struggling to support and raise her son, working at this shitty job, and we don't really get that here. It's just kind of like, all right, it's like one of those, like, what's the Kate Hudson movie where her sister dies and then she inherits the kids? I'm pretty sure it's Kate Hudson. I don't know what the movie is called, but that sounds very familiar. Like, that does exist. And it's just like, let's do that, but like a horror movie. And that's kind of, where like the cool aunt has to learn how to, like, this is the thing that's going to change her life. But none of that happened. It was so incidental that like the movie could have literally just been, like, they didn't even have to kill the parents. They could have been like, oh, our parents are on vacation in Europe, so you're watching Katie for a month or whatever. And she's like, hey, I want to try this prototype out on the doll. Because I don't feel that, like, other than the scene where they're demonstrating the doll and the people are watching and she's like, I miss my parents. Like, that's really the only time that it comes up.
Well, she has a full breakdown. Like, she's supposed to be there performing, for her aunt to like sell this android, and inadvertently does a really successful job at it. Plus, we didn't do a premise or anything like that. You cool?
Do you want to do a premise?
I didn't write one. I was just going to read like one that was provided by the movie.
Do you want me to do the premise?
IMDb, because go for it.
M3GAN, go see it. There you go.
Okay, sweet. M3GAN. Yeah. But because one thing that I got from I felt like the fact that the parents weren't kind of more of a part of it was the whole point, was the fact that there was this negligent aunt, or neglectful, I don't know if negligent is the word or if it's even a word, but neglectful aunt who, if she would only kind of like make Katie the center of her world for more than 15 minutes and really kind of like focus on her. What does she need? What is she craving? Keep in touch with this therapist who Katie has, who's assessing whether she's going to stay with you or the crazy parents in Florida. Yeah. And
do we know that the parents are crazy though? There's just sort of thing like,
all she says is that she's like, but they're from Florida, so like we're supposed to fill in the blanks. Like,
yeah, if it's Florida, that's where all the crazy shit happens. I just watched Wild Things. I mean, like, because if we're talking about like that Kate Hudson movie, someone please in the comments, like, what is this movie I'm thinking of? That movie, I'm sure that there was an arc for the character where she turns her life around. Where I feel like nothing in the movie in terms of Gemma like she doesn't really have an arc. I don't feel that there's anything's really different from where it starts to where it finishes, other than the fact that you probably don't have you definitely don't have a job anymore, and you're probably gonna get sued and go to jail for all the death and destruction that your prototype caused.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's the only way I see. Like, let me just put it this way: if they do a continuation, I don't need to see where Gemma or Katie ends up. Like, I hope that it's like new characters. That's why, like, I feel like it's different from Child's Play, where you have the continuity of Andy, because I think that he's important, whereas I don't think that Gemma or Katie really mean anything to M3GAN in the larger sense. Like, M3GAN is so developed as a character in her own right that I don't like. I think that it's just one of those things where she can just, however they want to do it. When they do a sequel, because it has been announced, that I would just rather see. I mean, they were showing all these different skin types. Like, they can have an Asian M3GAN for all we know. Like, just experiment, or just have all of them. I want to see like a Fox Force 5, like
Cult of M3GAN. Yeah. Watch them all interact, but they've all got different like hairstyles and hair consistencies and stuff like that, and different skin colors. That'd be cool. I mean, that's the thing is, like, as soon as the movie was over, I was really, really glad that the sequel had gotten greenlit, because this is a franchise that I think I could follow. Again, like, I know there's a very small fraction of horror movie goers who are not pleased with this movie. And probably for all of the reasons I said, that it appeals to quote unquote normies and mainstream audiences and stuff like that. Yeah. But the thing that does save it for me ultimately is, like you mentioned, like, you know, the camp aspect of it, and also the fact that, like, again, I'm watching unsympathetic characters for the most part, but I don't ever get tired of watching them. I'm not sitting here bored out of my mind because this idiot won't just get her. I am literally like going, like, I keep lifting my fists to the screen, just going like, what is wrong with you? So I'm involved, you know, I give a shit about what's going on. And I think that takes a certain amount of skill. And also, you mentioned not being particularly sympathetic toward Katie. I was for a big bulk of the movie, just because I kept seeing her needs being pushed to the side. And just all she was doing was just kind of like sitting there, like, plunked with sadness. Like, I'm a child who just lost my parents, and I haven't had my aunt normalize that for me until I think the third act of the movie. I don't even remember exactly what point it is, when she sits there and she's like telling her like why M3GAN is like a bad obsession for her, and it's like, you're supposed to feel bad, you know, you lost your parents, that is a major thing, and all of that. That's when I started going, yes, this is what I've been craving. Also, I found this whole time
it really, the beginning, like the first act, like really took a while to get going. Like, we didn't actually get M3GAN until a good, I wasn't clocking it, but it felt like it was over the half an hour point, because there was so much setup between the two characters before she like literally built the thing and brought it home. That, I mean, that not that it didn't work for me, but again, like, that would have been better if these were characters that I, you know, cared about a little bit more, because they were so unsympathetic. And I just wanted to say, like, Allison Williams, because I know, like, we know that she gives great performance. Like, we've seen Get Out. Yeah. And like, really, like, this character, like Gemma, is the same thing as, like, she's basically Rose like, you know, I can't do that, let you do that, hon, or whatever. She fucking, like, the keys. But
or before we see her photographs, like her photo spread with like every single one of the black people who live in her neighborhood, like prior to that, when we know she could still be like a good character. Yeah.
Well, no, because I was watching her and I was just thinking, like, God, she's boring. Like, she's so basic. But then I remembered, like, no, but she's the one from Get Out. Like, she's the sociopath who's like, she's like sitting there with that like nothing expression. She's got no emotion on her face, and she's like, "Oh my God, do you think something happened?" You know, like, so I'm just thinking, like, I just felt like they she deserves better than this role. I mean, not to say that like this was a nothing role, but I just feel like they could. She did as much as she could, but I just felt like her talents were wasted here because I forgot like who like what she was capable of.
Well, because what's funny, I watched a couple interviews with her in preparation for this pod, and one thing that I liked was they asked her what attracted you to this and what attracts you to horror in general, because she's not, as a movie fan, she can't really stand horror. She can't watch a lot of it because it really does stay with. It really affects her, and it really does stay with her. So no, I mean, but if people like really get shook by it, then it's like, okay, that's cool. But if as long as you're not looking down your nose at it and everything like that. But she talked about when she first got the script for Get Out, the thing that motivated her to be a part of that project was, oh my gosh, this is like actually saying something, and it is terrifying. What an opportunity to play this character when a lot of people are going to think they probably know who I am and what I can do based on girls, and then they're going to find out I'm the devil, basically, you know? Yeah. And she said that turned a lot of people's opinions of her. She could see the way people would regard her, you know, in supermarkets and on the street. And they'd be like looking, you know, at her like they can't trust her. So she said she was motivated to take the next role in The Perfection, which I haven't seen, but apparently it's a genre film. Has drama, horror, music, thriller. You tell me. But she said she took that role because she knew people didn't trust her anymore after Get Out, and that movie was apparently about a largely subjective point of view, I guess. Like, you're not supposed to know whether you can trust her or not. And she's like, great, I can use that. And she wanted to use it again in this movie, where you don't know whether you're watching the heroine of the film or whether you're watching, you know, the villain, the movie's true villain, and M3GAN is the heroine. So, and I thought that worked really, really well. And I thought, again, while I was completely bashing every decision she made, even though, I mean, my heart did hurt a little bit when that box cutter had to go into her collectible, because I'm like, oh, that's not what that's for. Oh,
that was probably, you know, that was like, that was the one part where I actually it was just like I feel that, you know, like I don't really like collect thing. I mean, like I obviously like collect stuff, but I don't like have toys and stuff that I have. Like, and I do have that ghost face, but you probably can't see it. It's like at the top here for anyone who's watching, which I just like, it's mint in the box. I don't think I would ever open it, but I feel that sensation of like having to cut something open in that moment. So that was probably the most like empathetic I felt towards her character and the whole thing. And it was for such like a shallow thing. It's just like, but this is good for the child, and it's just like. But her collector, like, that's probably where she could probably sell that and feed the child for like a whole year or however much that is worth. But I don't know. And when she started to explain to her like how to use it, and the psychologist was just like, why don't you let her like, that pissed me off. So
well, I asked my sister, because I was watching The Therapist, and I was having huge judgments toward the therapist in the beginning, because she shows up at the house and all she does is visibly judge everything that Gemma is doing. And even though I'm doing it, I'm in the movie theater. The kid can't see me. Yeah. And that is, my sister, who's a therapist, says one question she's been trained to ask herself when people are listening to her, or when people are talking to her, and she's listening, and all they have to look at her is, what is your face doing? Because what your face is doing could adversely affect like the course of how much they're willing to share with you, and if they feel judged, or if they feel like you're paying attention and all of that. And I'm watching this therapist all and out go, you know, like double take and and just completely judge the shit out of Gemma. And I'm like, okay, the kid's right there, and you're not helping Gemma. Like, this is something you take care of, like in the so I wanted to ask my sister, like, what do you think? She's like, I hated her in the beginning, but then I felt really bad for her in the end when Katie's just off the deep end, you know, flipping tables and shaking shit up and punching her aunt or slapping her. And I'm just like, that's when but even then I felt bad for Katie, because it's not her fault. She's acting out, and she's basically been on this runway towards acting out. I'm glad that it lasted for as short as a time as it did on screen, because it could have been unbearable. Because unruly kids like that's a way to turn me off in a movie. Like, like too much time with her like that, I would have been like, okay, kill the bitch. But they did it just enough.
Yeah, in terms of the was it therapist or psychologist? I never
thought she introduced herself as a therapist, but
well,
whatever.
Anyway, because like you were saying, just like as an audience member, it's different because like yes, we've gotten more insight into Gemma away from therapy to be able to judge her, whereas this woman has like literally just showed up at the door and is already doing it. But I will say that the therapist does bring up a good point later on where she says like, do you not see how this could be detrimental to Katie in the long run? And of course Gemma's like, well, no, like it's like this is really gonna blah blah blah. But at the same time, and this is kind of where I feel like the movie held back for me, is that the stakes could have been higher. There were so many characters that were in this that I was just like, oh, I was just waiting for them to get killed. And the therapist was one of them, because I'm just like, this woman was literally put in this movie to be a victim of M3GAN. And the fact that she just kind of disappears without any consequence for anything, like that upset me. Because it's almost like, I think like one of our earlier episodes, Valentine, we talked about that, where it's just like, I needed more people to die, because there were all these extra characters in that could have been killed off that weren't. And that's how I felt with this movie, because even like her coworkers in the lab there, where they're clearly attacked and there was every opportunity to kill them, but then they survived the explosion just to show up at the end. It was just like, oh, like you've basically minimized the kill count of this movie to, I mean, what was it, like 3, 4?
Oh, I didn't even count.
We had the kid with the ear pull off and hit by the car. There was the neighbor. I guess Brandon, she killed the dog as well. We'll count the dog. And then the boss and the guy who was selling the company secrets. And that was another
and Kurt.
That was another thing. Like it was like, here's this storyline that was being set up that never paid off.
Him stealing the
intel? I felt like that was going to be like a big thing, and all it was literally just for her to be like, oh, I know what you were like, you've been selling company secrets and blah blah blah, and then like kill him. Like, I don't know, I was expecting like a big thing where like the competition was gonna come in and there was gonna be like a big spectacle like that, like when she came down that elevator and everyone was like, okay, get ready for M3GAN, and then she literally just walked out the building. I was just like, I wanted like more death, Does that make me sick?
Okay. No, because you're a genre fan.
Yeah.
But I'd say it didn't really enter my mind because I had enough to play with. Like, I mean, if the movie had been lacking more for me over the course of the story, I probably would have been like, just lean more into the violence. But I felt like ultimately everything they were doing kept me enveloped in the story. Like, I wasn't going like, so we could really use something here.
Fair enough.
But that's just me. Yeah. But
well, it's just almost like, because we talked about this in Child's Play, because I think we mentioned specifically, because the cherry picker for that episode, I chose Walter Criswell, who was the manager at the department store where Karen worked, because he was another one that was just like prime for like, Chucky should have killed him, because he was just a piece of shit. And that's how I felt like so many characters in this movie, where it's just like, someone rubbed M3GAN or Katie or Gemma, or mostly just Katie or M3GAN the wrong way. It's just like, oh, they're gonna get punished. That's what I wanted. I wanted like literally like almost like, because we did the Silent Night Deadly Night podcast where like the whole thing was like punish, and I criticized that movie as much as I could. But I mean, like, that is pure camp, and I feel like if something that M3GAN could have done more, it was that. I'm just like, here's this doll with no sense of, and it's weird to say, because like I feel that M3GAN really is like an entity with a sense of right and wrong, and obviously has empathy for Katie, but she's still doing all these like unspeakable murderous things, which that's why I feel that M3GAN is so much more complex, even though she is a robot essentially, because she's essentially like, she's been created to develop her own personality and feelings to like about things, and that's, I mean, like, again, that's not breaking any new ground, but I did like the way that they did that here, because I think like M3GAN is kind of like the most interesting character of the whole piece.
Well, that was
all
one
things
thing. Like,
considered.
again, not to like you said earlier, not to compare it too much to anything that Child's Play related, but I did feel while I was pretty well into this movie, I just kind of thought, wow, I feel like this is succeeding at everything I thought the Child's Play reboot failed at. Like, in terms of just messaging and in terms of like trying to kind of like update the subgenre of, you know, the doll horror and everything like that. Making it culturally relevant and everything like that. Because I remember there were things that bothered me. We never did, and I don't think we ever will do with Child's Play. Was it 2019? Was that when the reboot came out?
Yeah, you never know, but no, go ahead.
You never know. But one huge flaw for me that really bothered me about that movie, I remember, is that Chucky watches a horror movie and starts to kind of like learn violence or whatever, which made a horrible point that seems to be very anti-genre and very much kind of like what the people who are arguing why these movies shouldn't be made, you know, would say, see, it programs people to do this thing, which is the exact opposite, especially the fact that he was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That hurt me. But that was personal. I was just kind of like, now I'm against this movie.
The premise or the beginning of that movie, I've only seen it once. I own it, but
no, me too.
I didn't love it, but
no.
The opening wasn't the whole thing that it was like a disgruntled employee of the buddy line, because that's what it was called. They either like didn't include the chip that like prevented the doll from becoming a homicidal maniac, or put like reprogrammed it a different way or whatever. So if it's already been programmed to be a killer, what purpose does it have to have Chucky watching a horror movie and develop like a sense of, you know, how to murder someone like that? That doesn't make it. That just seems like bad writing. I'm all about calling out the bad writing these days.
But the thing is, it seemed to be trying to make a point about like us, like, you know, and I mean, nothing different than like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, with like, just because we can, does that mean we should, you know, kind of thing. Like, should we be playing God? Should we be, you know, like, and even more specifically, like in the case with like M3GAN, should we be making things that can act as kind of like facsimile parents, you know? And be there to kind of like fill in the blanks where the parents may
like a nanny
not be able to deliver exactly. But at the same time, like the reason why it didn't work for me, there was like the reasons you mentioned in Child's Play are just because it was so sloppy. That was so incredibly, like, you know, somebody didn't realize, well, we already didn't program. But then what if we watch as a horror movie and people weren't thinking? I just felt like it was a lot of bad decisions. Whereas with this one, I felt like it was very cleanly and purely always pointing back to us and what we're capable of, and what we also rely on technology for, which I liked. It said it perfectly in that ad for
that opened the movie,
the first M3GAN. The one for M3GAN actually, where they say she'll take care of the little things so you can focus on what's important, as if those two things are separable, whereas the little things, any person with any measure of compassion who's ever been anywhere near a child knows that the little things are what's important when you're parenting a child. It's not about the big picture.
It was, I also just wanted to say of the Child's Play 2019, like they were also juggling the fact that they were recreating the same characters, and obviously it wasn't like a shot for shot, like straight up remake. They were doing a lot of things differently, but all like the detective Mike character was there, and Andy and his mom and all that. So it's just like they were still trying to live up to this legacy that they would never be able to, and that's why that movie's a mess. But I actually really liked, because when the movie started, for M3GAN, I was just like, is this the right movie? Or is this the movie? Because it was like started playing on this toy commercial. And that I loved it. So it was almost like, if you ever watched like South Park, sometimes they haven't done this in a while, but they'll just like, whatever the episode is, like maybe all like the kids want some specific product that there's something they're talking about, and then they'll actually put an ad for it with human actors in the middle of the episode, and that's what it felt like I was watching in the middle of M3GAN. Just like these random things, and I like noticed there was like all this stuff like Google compatible and Apple, and I'm just like, okay, that now that makes sense why maybe this is PG-13, because they have all these brand sponsors that were probably like, yeah, you gotta tone it down. I'm curious to see what the I'll probably buy this because they said that they'll do an R-rated version, but I don't believe Jason Blum when he says that this was the better version. It was better to take out. I never trust anything. He I was on Twitter and I was just like reading his kind of his updates as like, you know, the movie had released and the reviews were coming in, and he's like, wow, like at one point it was up to 98%. He's like, 98%, that's so great, like blah blah blah. And then someone tweeted back and was just like, what did Halloween Ends do? And he's like, not as good. And then he put something else. He's just like, Rotten Tomatoes. And this is actually, I appreciate this because it was like almost the most self-aware I've ever seen him. It's just like Rotten Tomatoes scores matter when they're good, but when they're bad, they don't matter.
All right.
But you just know
like
that,
a true businessman.
Yeah, you just know that this will be like in true Blumhouse fashion. They have one hit on their hands like every year and a half. For the next 2 years, whatever they release will be from the studio that brought you M3GAN. And probably, I don't know if they'd still... I guess like Halloween Ends was successful enough that I could see them be like, Halloween Ends and M3GAN, you know, comes whatever. I think it was like 3 years after Get Out came out that they were still promoting things of like the studio that brought you Get Out. So they will cling on to those hits. They're few and far between.
Oh, totally.
You know, it's what they got to do.
But when they got them, they're just like, hey, remember that thing we gave you? You want to come? I mean, it's all business. It's all advertising. But just in terms of like the pets thing, like the plot, one thing that hit me about those, they were called perpetual pets. And the first thing that I was struck by when I saw the ad opening the movie was just the horrible plausibility of it. And what I didn't even realize they were bringing up thematically, because the whole point is that they're perpetual pets, so they can't die on you. And so you don't have to go through any kind of like suffering or any kind of loss at an early childhood, which I think is how a lot of kids experience death first. I remember I was bereft when my first goldfish died, because it was the first pet that I ever was solely responsible for. I had to feed him and make sure his bowl was clean and all of that kind of stuff. And he lasted less than a week because we got him from a carnival. And I remember when we had to flush him, and I remember like an hour later after we flushed him and said goodbye and had the funeral and everything, I was crying in my room, and my parents had to come in and console me. And so, I mean, it was interesting to think about like an early... I mean, I did this after the movie, but I just thought about this early, you know, kind of like equation of death that I had, the way it was introduced to me, and how here the irony of here this girl has been given this gift with the whole thing. It's just like, so you won't have to, you know, to put off your, you know, you having to deal with grief and loss and anything like that for much later in life. And then what does she do? She instantly loses her parents. Like, And I thought, okay, that's a little smarter. I mean, it's a more in retrospect thing. I didn't know that's what they were telling me at the time, but in retrospect, looking at it, I thought like, okay, that works harder at, you know, like kind of like setting things up thematically than a lot of horror movies do these days.
Okay,
but I'll
give
think
it that
her parents were. But I did think her parents were absolute idiots.
Oh,
like who? Number one, okay, who speeds in the snow? Then number two, who just stops in the middle of the road on the snow? Just like, okay, cool. Now what I've done? Well, idiot, you can't just sit there. I'm like, that's why. I mean, that also started to set up my God. Okay, I'm going to be watching a bunch of people making a lot of mistakes in this movie because I did. But I thought that was, I mean, they didn't even know that you put chains on the car. I mean, I've always had 4-wheel drive, so I've never had to put chains on a car. But if I lived in a place where it snowed and I didn't have 4-wheel drive, everybody knows if you're an adult, and I mean, they're raising a child. that's neglectful. I thought like, okay, so fuck
if
them.
anything,
like she's probably better off
I feel
without
that
them.
like I think she's better off with Gemma and Megan.
Because at least Megan's gonna take care of her, and Gemma's like, cares.
Gemma's there.
You know,
Gemma's there. She's got more time for the things that matter. Also, the price tag on Megan was $10,000 US. I love like the fact that they're selling this as a toy that just like this is the only toy you need to buy for the rest of your child's life. Like once you get this, you don't have to get anything. It's basically the iPhone. It has everything in it. It's the TV. It's the camera. It's the MP3 player. All that shit. And it also has a calculator. They're just because the whole thing was like and we're gonna sell these for like a higher price. And I was thinking like okay maybe 1,000, 2,000 at most, but it was like 10,000. And I'm just trying to think, like, how many are they actually going to... Like, the only people who are going to be buying these are fucking rich people. Like, they'll probably turn a profit. But it's like this thing is not marketable to, like, 99% of the American population. Like, right off the bat. Like, just forget that. Like, this is some high-end shit, Like
1%er shit.
Yeah,
totally. But I think that's I think a lot of that's another thing. I think a lot of things turn to that 1%er what's the word I'm looking for, demographic. I mean, even I just came from a theater trip in New York, and it just kind of felt more like Vegas than anything else. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, they're like, but the way the ticket prices are and everything like that, I'm just like, okay, the only people who can really kind of get into this are high end, 1%er, or maybe not 1%er. That's a bit high, but the people who like, have a disposable income and things like that. And
funny
I think
about
the
that
world
though
is getting more and more like that.
Yeah, that this is. The whole purpose of that is that this is the toy that will replace all toys. You don't have to buy anything else. But if you are in that 1%, it doesn't matter. You're just going to keep buying shit. If it breaks, buy another one or buy this. So it's the whole ideal behind this is more so catered to the other 99% of just like put a huge lump sum down now, and you don't have to pay for another toy for this kid for the next 5 years or whatever. Like that's, but it's like nobody's gonna have $10,000 to just drop on a Megan.
No, but it's also got that it's number one. It's a first like model price. Like this is the first computers were always more expensive than the ones that were subsequent. Like there was a joke at one point, I think on Will and Grace, where someone's like on a computer going like, the computer I bought 2 years ago is now a quarter of the price, and things are always going to get updated and they're going to be more accessible. But I also feel like this is kind of like the next leg of, shall we say, like a Jurassic World or something like that, where okay, we'll have a coupon day, or well, maybe we'll start to have like Megan's like for rental and things like that.
I want to see a Megan
like a red
theme
box
park
where you can get your Megan.
Like
the
Jurassic World.
But just in terms of like, okay, let's have this family invest all this money into this like one huge thing that's going to overwhelm the child, like seeing a dinosaur or having a new sister that is also a doll. But
I want the tagline for the sequel to be the Jason X tagline: "The evil gets an upgrade."
It basically is, isn't it? Something like friendship has been upgraded or something like that.
Is it? Probably.
It's something like that. It's something akin to that. But another thing that was very Jurassic Park to me about the movie, though, that reminded me of it, you brought it up, was Kurt stealing the documents. I thought that was just the Barbasol can with all like the DNA. It's just like an open door. Like if somebody wants to ever find that can and make their own dinosaurs, we know they can. So if somebody ever does discover those documents that he stole, and they can make their own Megan if we want to like make that movie where like what is the rival company's Megan gonna look like?
The end
and sound like? Made
it seem like either one or two things. Megan transferred her essence, the horror of Megan transferred from the doll to the what was it? It was like
cloud. I was just like, Megan's in the cloud now. That's what I thought.
Or it was just one of those things where just like evil is in all technology, you know, like it could have been one or the other.
I mean, maybe I would have had a more ambiguous response to it if I didn't know that the sequel had been greenlit when I saw it. Yeah. But because I know that sequel, I'm like, of course there has to be an open door, and there is. Good for them. They built it in. And I think this movie allows for something like that. I think that she could take a franchise on her shoulders. Let's hope they continue to make, you know, movies that are at least as satisfying as this one is.
I don't think that any sequel will get 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's for sure. This felt like a fluke.
Yeah, but I mean, also they did. I think they had a real good idea releasing it in January, which is usually where like horror releases go to die, or you know, people will pay always.
This is definitely like
the horror release in January, but it doesn't always get a high rating.
Yeah, like this is definitely. I mean, we had Scream 5 last January, but I've definitely noticed like lately, just in the last couple of years, January is now kind of the en vogue.
It's redefining
to
it's
release
redefining
horror.
itself.
Whereas I feel like maybe back in like 2020, it was just like the worst shit. It was like The Boy 2. That might have been February,
right?
But it was just like
Blumhouse. Yeah, that was February. But early
Blumhouse's Fantasy Island, like just really bad shit. That
early in the year, yeah. It's always a sketchy time for horror. It's also like an incredibly like divisive time. Like I remember Texas Chainsaw 3D got released January of the year. It got released whenever that was, and I remember
the new one
having
came
a lot
out
of arguments with people
in February.
Yeah, that was February of last year.
Yeah.
But I remember having a lot of arguments with people over that movie too, over the Texas Chainsaw 3D, because I thought it, especially like for and especially like for a January movie, I was like, this is definitely. I had a much better time. At least I enjoyed myself. There have been, you know, January horror. I still haven't seen so many, just because so many people thumbs downed them, that I was like, well, geez, okay, I'll just wait for something I like. Like, what was that one in 2020? Didn't they do like a Wrong Turn reboot, and they were at the same time they were doing another
I never
Ring
saw it
reboot.
I didn't see either.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe it wasn't The Ring. Maybe it was.
No, there was a new Ring at some point.
There was.
Okay. I don't remember when.
Anyway, but if January is going to start to become like, you know, the month of the.
I mean, let's put it this way. What came out in October last year? Like, it just felt like the January releases are now like October is where like horror movie goes to die with David Gordon Green. that Pray for the Devil movie came out in October as well, and that was not good. So yeah, it's almost like Halloween time is when not to release horror movie. Like, it's just, that's almost the curse now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did want to address was, this is also a movie that I think was kind of doomed to be successful, just because of the way they were advertising it and because of the life that particularly dancing M3GAN.
Sorry, I just had like a flashback of a line from Jawbreaker, and just like doomed to be successful with those legs, or
because of that face. Yes, because of those dance moves. Yeah. But it's true. I mean, people are already like cosplaying her before the movie comes out, and people are, you know, doing her version of the dance like down public hallways and stuff like that.
Well, that's what they were marketing the movie at like football games, just like halftime shows with just like M3GAN dancers just, you know, doing their choreographed thing.
I even saw them. They were at a premiere. I don't know which one, where Jason Blum literally was also cosplaying as M3GAN.
Yeah,
and
he loves doing drag.
And he stood with 4 of the M3GAN dancers, like the that they had just kind of milling about. They all came together to take this like photograph, and he was standing head and shoulders above like the other ones. But it was a funny thing to behold.
He's M3GAN-tron.
He is, but the reason I bring it up is just because it was interesting from a marketing standpoint to see how, you know, predestined this movie was for its kind of like welcome. And because people were already talking about it, which is half the game these days, I think. Before your movie comes out, are people interested, and have you already found some way for people to be memeing it and for people to be replicating dance moves like on TikTok and everything like that? That said, I did, as much as it helped it did kind of like make that moment in the film, which could have been a head explosion moment if I didn't know that it was coming. Just her dancing before she goes full Ghostface or Jason, whichever slasher you want to put in there, but decides this is who I am now. I'm a killer, and goes after Ronnie Chiang, his character Dave. But so I was glad that they didn't advertise the singing, because at least that was a shock when she started singing Titanium. I was like,
that was the funniest part.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, what am I watching? And it was so moving up until, and even the way it was delivered was sincere. So you can be moved by it if you so choose, but it is so ridiculous that it crosses over and starts to become humorous in a way that I think serves the film. So I was grateful for that. I wish I could have had a similar response to the dance moves and not known that they were coming and go like, what the fuck? She's full tilt, like killer, empowered woman. Yeah. I'm going to take over the world.
I mean, we know, we've discussed this before, especially in terms of Blumhouse.
Blumhouse,
trailers in general, but Blumhouse especially, because he did have that quote to say, or, I'm going to misquote it or whatever, back when Sinister came out, of the big jump scare in the movie. Not the big one with the lawnmower, but the one where Bagul was in the bushes and turned the head and or no, it was the computer screen. That's what it was, where he turned on the computer screen. And Scott Derrickson, or did he write that as well? Someone involved was just like, I lobbied hard to have that pulled from the trailer, and Jason Blum insisted because he said that nobody's going to remember it, and it's just like, you do not have audience awareness. No. Like that's the no. Audiences now, this was 10 years ago, but especially now, everyone knows everything. Everyone knows every frame of every trailer, that you cannot hide anything. And if he's still operating under that belief, I mean, I have no faith in Blumhouse. I have no faith in most trailers, but especially Blumhouse trailers. But you do bring up an interesting point about how lately a lot of these movies' successes are kind of hinged on the marketing, because and I don't want to go into specifics, because we might cover a lot of these movies on future episodes, and I also don't want to like full on declare that something is not good and just was popular based on the marketing. But we have seen a lot of really clever marketing lately for a lot of movies that are good, like but it's almost like people get, like, I even see on Twitter, I can't believe like how much more integrated into Twitter I am than when we started this podcast. But I look on Twitter and I see people will comment on a movie that hasn't even come out. They've seen a trailer and they're just like, this is going to be the best movie of 2023, or just like already like building up that mindset. And just like, that's exactly like you are playing into the manipulation. Like, you're allowing yourself to become, like, feel this way. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. I think like for you and I, because we have very different opinions, sometimes we come together. I feel like we're on the same page here.
Sure.
But, especially like last week, we had a lot of differing opinions. And then I just think that we've kind of honed, like, we're old enough now. And I'm not like trying to knock a generational thing, but we've watched enough movies over enough years that we know what we like. We know what we respond to the best. And I see like a lot of stuff that comes out nowadays, and I'll immediately see someone just be like, best, like 5-star. Like, there's not really a system for a lot of people, I find, of just like how they will rate movie, or just like if they did like a 5-star rating or something. Because for me, it's very rare that I would give a movie a full 5 stars, like a perfect score. Like, these are usually movies that are that a lot older, that I've grown up with, that are like older than I am. that have just kind of lived with me for so long. And if something comes out nowadays that I really love, it's, I think like the highest I might give it is like 4 stars. And this like ratings are so arbitrary anyway, but it's for instance, like X that came out, that was like my favorite movie of last year. I gave that 4.5 stars. You know, I think that was a great movie. That might have been more generous than it deserved, but I'll see people like take a M3GAN, for instance, and be like 5 stars. And it's just like, what is your measure? What is your measure of things? And I'm gonna call him out. And this is nothing in particular, but Ryan C. Showers, who I like really started listening to his podcast. He's does great coverage on the Scream franchise, just like full episodes. And I was listening to one. This is an older episode because I'm going through them. So hi, Ryan. I was listening to the one where they were talking about the Halloween franchise. And it was just funny that him and his guest kind of took a moment to just go through all of the sequels and rate them out of 5 stars. And he even commented, he even said like, you know, I feel like I'm just giving, like just being the nice parent and just like, you know, these movies probably don't necessarily deserve this, but like, you know, there were so many that he was giving 5 stars to. And I was just like, wow, like H2O, I would never give that 5 star. Like as far as I'm concerned, the only Halloween movie that I would give 5 stars to is the original. And I think everything after that is just like to varying degrees, like middling, with a few that are like really on the low end. But I just personally, I can't attach myself to a movie, especially something newer or even like, you know, within the last 20 years, unless it's like really life-changing. And for you know, all due respect, that might, like Halloween H2O might be that for him. So I'm sorry, Ryan, I didn't mean to use you as a punching bag. That was just the first thing that came to mind because I listened to that recently. But I'll see this not just with him, but like a lot of people on Letterboxd or, you know, on Twitter, and just be like, this, you know, 5 stars, this is a perfect movie. And I'm just like, but if you were to really get down to the nuts and bolts of things and like compare M3GAN, which you're saying is a 5-star movie, to I don't what else do people love that like came out within the last 5 years? I don't know. Happy Death Day. That was a 5-star movie. Or even like, we'll say Halloween 2018, because a lot of people would rate that as a 5-star movie. So it's just like, I would look at like M3GAN versus that, which is not a great comparison for me because I also think that that's an average movie, but I know you really love it. So like, but do you see the comparison I'm making? Like, how do you measure what is perfect when you're saying that everything that comes out, if like you had a positive reaction to it, 5-star movie? Like,
well, this is also where like the ranking and rating of things, like where I start to find like fault with it, because I don't feel like that is an accurate way to gauge like what someone got out of it. It's like I get much more out of a discussion, out of like a sit down and, you know, something like this where you get to talk about the things that matter to you and that like stood out to you that you thought worked. And because that's another thing, is like when you're rating a movie, are you rating the experience you had while you were seeing it the first time? Because for me, that's not always what I return for. Sometimes I love sitting through and just remembering the ride through, the first way through, and I get nostalgic for that feeling, and I just kind of want to re-experience that. Sometimes movies, though, shift into something else, and they become, you know, like part of me. You know, like they grow with me over time. I'm recognizing new things in them all the time, and I'm not so nostalgic about them so much as I love returning to them and reinvesting in them because there's always something new to find there. But you don't know that until time passes. So how can you accurately rate something after the first sit down, after the first screening? Because especially everything about this genre that defines success in, and not even the genre, the film, like the film media, shall we say. Everything about the media that defines success is standing the test of time, which means can you remain relevant, year after year, decade after decade, to generation after generation, that will continue to bring you up, and to whatever platform you have, whether it's social media or blogging or YouTube videos, whatever it is this the thing that people are going to still be making content about? So yeah, all that whole thing. That's why even like the Rotten Tomatoes thing I saw how highly this movie was being rated on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was just kind of like, oh. And then I just went in and I watched the movie. I didn't think like, oh my gosh, that's great, I'm gonna have the best time. I don't build myself up before films like that anymore, because I know so much. I've been burned before. I've gotten excited about things and then sat through them and been like,
I had an experience like that this past weekend, and I.
Oh no. What movie?
It was Skinamarink.
Oh no! I'm sorry.
I
haven't seen it
yet.
Yet.
Like we're gonna segue into a little mini review. I mean, like, it was. I didn't know what to expect. I just know that here's like this very low budget thing. It was just being touted as like this huge, big release. The director, writer, like creator of it is actually like from Alberta, here where I live in Edmonton. So that was like another cool factor. And it was just like, it was like a limited screening at an old theater. Like it's cool. Like I want to go to that. And I just, sat through the movie, and I just could not for the life of me understand maybe people were seeing whatever, like they were praising, saw it a different way, but I just saw something that was really, boring to me, and I just question, like, is this art? So I mean, like, okay. I appreciate the fact that movies like this can be made, and Skinamarink talking about like movies like that can be made and like actually find an audience somewhere and take off, because it does give hope to up and coming filmmakers that that you do have a platform. There is a place where you can get your movies screened for people.
Right.
It just pains me when they're not, at least like I don't think that they're good, because then I feel like that's could be a detriment to future filmmakers, because it's just like maybe it's one of those things where just like, well, we don't want to let that happen again. But apparently this is very polarizing, that movie, so there's enough people that could be like, yeah, we need more Skinamarink type movies.
Okay.
So having said that, I think, how many horror movies have I seen so far this year? I'm not sure, but M3GAN is currently sitting at the top, and I know what you mean, because I did mention that like rating and ranking is so arbitrary. It's such a personal thing as well, that it's hard to put your shit out there and not have someone be like, your opinion's wrong and I hate you, and just like get all worked up and shit. Like there's one ranking of the Scream movies that's floating around on Twitter that's just like the caption is like, is this not the best ranking of the Scream franchise, or something like that, and it's I forget what it is. It might be like closer to yours, but it was just like 2 was in last, and all like the 2 stands were just like, no, this fucking ranking sucks. And like that's the thing, like every opinion, and if you are going to rank and rate and all that shit, like it's also subjective. That
I just wish more people saw it as an open door to a conversation rather than a closed door. Like, okay, that's it. Your opinion's obviously not worth my time. Slam door. It's like, no, you could. I mean, you have the right to do that, but you also have the opportunity to ask. So, I noticed what you had there at the bottom. Why? That you can ask.
I mean, like, for you, I'm so fascinated by your Texas Chainsaw ranking. That I could listen to you explain that to me for hours, and you have actually swayed my opinions on certain things. So it's that's why it's always good to get an opinion, and just because I feel like I was being unnecessary to throw him under the bus later. I will say that Ryan Showers, he's a huge supporter of Scream 3. And in particular, like listening to his thoughts on that movie have kind of given me a newfound appreciation for the film, which I mean, like, I know we've had discussions about it, and I've definitely like found appreciation from out of it from you, but which is funny because I rank it much higher than you do in your right. Even before my opinions changed, like you've always had that in last. So that's why it is important to like allow that open door, because it's no matter where things land, everyone has a different perspective on things, and if you allow yourself to hear someone's perspective, that's when you'll start to open up, expand your mind, and that's what we're all about here at the Cherry Picker, and killing douchebags in horror movies.
Oh my God! Speaking of, one of the people I was so relieved to see die in this movie was a child. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Brandon, oh my God. First off, like, scary, imposing, like, beyond, there's usually the kid who's designated, like, in movies, particularly in the horror genre, where, the kid is the bully and, like, we're supposed to hate him and whatever like that. But this was one where I felt it in my body, like there was something in my body chemistry that was rejecting this child and saying, like, he needs to be in a padded room and he needs to be studied, because this is not, I don't like the behavior. I don't like what I'm seeing manifest here. I'm not like the enabling mother. She's the one who says the behavioral issues are linked to high IQs. So at least, so if he misbehaves, no skin off my nose. Like, I mean, I'm just doing my job to make him the smartest, most successful, like most child that I can have that I can hold on to my bragging rights forever, because that's the kind of mother I've decided to be. And then you see him, the thing that really pissed me off was when, he showed that little spiky, whatever, I don't know, was it a fruit or tree growth, whatever it was, like a shrub or something, and it was spiky, and he put it in Katie's hand and squeezed her hand around it and hurt her. I was like, what kind of fucked up, like, okay, I go see horror movies to watch people, be put through agony and die, but it's all fake. I'm not going to get any kicks off of like putting something sharp in someoe's hand, particularly a little girl, somebody who's smaller than me, and then just squeezing their hand around. Like, even my most evil brother, sibling, like sadism is not about that. That's horrible.
I really question this whole daycare thing, because clearly this kid has like caused issues before, because that, like, when they're pairing them up, that one girl's like, I don't want to go with him, and it's almost like clearly the parents know that this is a problem. Like, he should have been kicked out of that. First, he's way too old to be there anyway. That for one. But yeah, once there's already issues, like, he should not be there. So I don't know. I just really wish that we got more. Like, that's where I guess the R rating would have come in. Of just like that ear yank off thing. Was that in the trailer, by the way?
I don't know. I didn't watch any of the trailers.
I know that I remember seeing him.
I'd look up at the floor.
Yeah, I remember seeing him like tumble out in front of the car.
Okay.
I don't think the ear thing in particular was shown.
Okay.
But I was when he got hit by the car, because I was thinking like, oh, he's just gonna like kind of be hospitalized or something. But when they like zipped up the body bag, it was just like, shit's gotten real. That's when I knew this was like high camp, because it was like they just, and then the ensuing conversation between Gemma and Katie, where she's just like, just know that boy is in a better place now, or whatever she said.
Oh, fuck that shit. I think I said out loud too, you don't know that. I think I couldn't, like, I couldn't hold myself back. I was so involved at that point. But maybe not that loud, but I was shaking my head a lot. Also, but that's another thing. I'm glad you like brought up the whole like PG-13 aspect at this particular point, because that's another thing about the rating thing. Really, it doesn't really enter my head all that much. I rarely walk away from a movie, begrudging it because of its rating, because of its R rating or PG-13 or whatever. I rarely think about it in those terms. I'm just kind of like sitting there like, well, what'd you make? Show me. Yeah. And because the things that happened in it still had impact for me. I mean, also the fact that, a dog was among massacred, like in this, it was on the kill list in this movie. And the fact that I didn't want the dog to die, and I don't feel like the movie wanted me to want the dog to die. Like, that's supposed to be a turning point where we realize, okay, there's a lot to laugh at with M3GAN. There's a lot to have fun, but there is an actual threat. She's not always going to kill the people you want to see killed. She's not going to step in for Jason Voorhees in that vein. She's going to go after some presences on screen that you're going to be like, oh, no, because it's not the dog's fault. The dog was just being a dog, and you were, reaching in its domain, and that's what the dog is supposed to do, is protect its domain. But whatever. I also, though, as much as I appreciated that aspect of it, just to go back to that. I couldn't tell, was it daycare or was it a camp that she was dropping Katie off where she met Brandon?
She didn't drop. She was there. She was like volunteering.
She was there. That's true. Yeah. But like, it just had like a distinctly, maybe because it was outdoors, but it had such a camp feel. Even the way they greeted her at the car, just kind of like, "Hey, are you ready to have a great time?" or whatever they say. And I love the counselor, or whatever when she sees M3GAN.
Well, because M3GAN looks over and is just like, "Oh my, yeah, like Jesus."
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah. And I love Gemma just being like, nice. "Well, no, okay, but no photos." She's like prototype. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Like, I wanted that subplot. Like, they kept building up to it. Like, there was like a competitor that was like trying to steal. Yeah. Like, that to me would have been like the seed of Chucky of the John Waters character trying to get photos of Chucky. It was like the paparazzi, and then Chucky like killing him.
I think it still may pay off in one of the sequels. Like, I don't think competing businesses, because we're talking about capitalism and corporate America and all of that. I don't think we're going to lose the competitors.
I feel that like this
presence.
Yeah, what I will say is, like, for a franchise like M3GAN, if it becomes one, this is like prime for, like to have the sequel that outdoes the original, because I don't think that there's anything necessarily, like you said, groundbreaking or deep about M3GAN 1, we'll say. M3GAN. I'm just throwing out shit. That we could totally see a situation where, like, a Child's Play 2 to Child's Play, where just like like Randy says, it's just like the sequel's always got to be bigger and more like bloodier, more elaborate death scenes like that. We very well could segue into an R-rated sequel. I mean, possibly. Sure. We'll see if it happens. But even if it doesn't, like, there's definitely going to be more killing. That like they're gonna step up their game, and that's why, like, I hope, but I do feel in like my heart of hearts that M3GAN 2 will deliver more than what this one can, because this is almost like a little sleeper hit that nobody expected it to be what it was.
Yeah.
I even like when I did the like most anticipated movies that were coming out this year, like, I had this one low. I even said, like, this is nothing new, and it's true, this is nothing new, but it was like the best version of that it could have been, to a point.
Yeah, I agree. Like, because I wasn't particularly. I think it definitely, the fact that I had low expectations going in helped this movie, and probably makes me forgive a lot of things. Like, I was just thinking about the whole deal with the demonstration. Wait, the thing that you were just addressing with shit, what were you just talking about? You just mentioned something about the movie that I was just kind of like, that was a huge plot hole. Fuck, I can't remember things anymore. My brain is broken.
We were talking about the camp, the camp scene.
Yeah.
We were talking about the dog. We were talking about the way earlier. We were talking about, like, when she got out of the elevator and then the bodies were there.
Yeah, no, it's none of that. Okay, it'll come to me. Okay. But anyway, I have another point to make about Gemma. One thing that I did appreciate, though, about her that I hope they kind of keep in any sequels that they make. I hope this is like so
you want to see Gemma come back?
No, not Gemma, but what she does on screen, because I love the fact that she's kind of equal, as much as she's like a neglectful guardian, she's also equal parts mad scientist and eccentric artist. Like that, after that exchange she has with Katie, that like kind of like sets that, you know, that ball rolling again. Like, okay, now I have to go and like fix all of this stuff. I've got to make like M3GAN work because now I'm motivated because my, so, you know, a kid like my niece needs it. So I'm going to stay up all night and I'm going to have a montage and I'm going to, you know, make this thing work. And that made her, well, before it ever made her sympathetic, it at least made her have an interesting kind of like inner life that I could follow. Like, okay, she's got a passion. She's motivated to do this for, you know, the good, which kind of puts her on, you know, standing alongside the mix of like a Dr. Jekyll or a Dr. Victor Frankenstein. And I really appreciate that because at least there's a motive beyond like this corporate kind of like greed for success and to just be bigger and better and all of that. Like it's also to heal something that she could heal if she would just kind of open her heart and make time in her schedule, you know, for this new little life that she's responsible for. And I love that the movie knows all of that, though. That's another thing. It's just I love the fact that, like, when they have the conversation we've been waiting for them to have the whole movie, where, you know, the page kind of turns with Katie and she goes from being this really sympathetic kid to being this, you know, squalling brat, but it's not her fault, but still, my God, that's a lot. To being back to being like this sympathetic kid who's going through something really, really hard, and now we're rooting for her to join up with her guardian and to beat this presence of M3GAN, and still have me kind of, you know, worry about the two of them. I don't think it's all going to be smooth sailing from here on out, but because I do think they're both deeply flawed people, but the fact that they are, and that
there's no way. There's no way. I mean, like I said, Gemma is going to jail, and Katie is going to stay with the crazy grandparents in Florida.
Oh, in Florida.
I guess maybe for me, like just to get back to like how I felt it held back a bit is that I thought that like the big climax was gonna happen at the like the office. Like during like the big unveiling of M3GAN, and that's why I thought like, okay, all of the key characters are coalescing here. Like even the therapist, like she was there at the end. That's why I was just like, why did you have her here? There's literally no reason for her to be here, and then just disappear. So that's why I thought like, okay, the big action is gonna happen here at this event. Like they were really building it up. Like even what was the Dave? The
David,
boss or whatever.
The
because he was just like, there's not enough people here. There needs to be more people here. So I'm just like, oh, this is going to be big. The blood is going to be let, you know? And then it just like, but then they left and they went home. And I guess like that's not dissimilar from Child's Play, because in Child's Play, like the first movie ends at home. You know, they go back to the apartment. That's where the climax takes place. And then it wasn't until Child's Play 2 where they're literally at the factory. So I don't know, I'm thinking like maybe if we do get a M3GAN 2, like it'll end up at the M3GAN production factory. And you know, there's like a big scene there.
Or she'll be at the other company, and it'll be her versus all the rival M3GANs. Like it'll be the other model.
Maybe it will. Maybe Katie will.
That would be cool.
Yeah, maybe Katie will come back, and she'll be like now the new Andy, like staying with foster parents because obviously Aunt Gemma's in jail now.
Right. I wouldn't mind her coming back like Clear Rivers style though, like Gemma. She doesn't have to be in a rubber room, but no, not Gemma. I mean Gemma too. Either one of them. Yeah. I wouldn't mind them coming back in some. So
you want Katie to
like,
just have like a pathetic death in the second movie?
I would rather they play minor roles in either the second or third sequels, and then maybe come back for some kind of like big, you know, once it's a franchise that has some legs with its sequels, then maybe they can come back and stand toe to toe with other characters.
I just don't think that cool. I don't think that M3GAN is the type of horror movie monster that needs to have a foil like, you know, Michael to Laurie, or because I mean, like, Jason definitely should, like, that's the flaw that we talked about with Friday the 13th. That's just like not killing off, but like, well, the first one, but just like doing away in whatever way with whoever your lead was in the previous movie. That really, like, the only, if there was one, it's Tommy Doyle. Not Tommy Doyle, Tommy, the other Tommy.
Tommy
Jarvis. Yeah. For like 3 movies where he's played by a different actor each time. So it's, you know, I think that M3GAN doesn't need that necessarily, because M3GAN, like I said, is the kind of, like, she's adaptable to suit her personality to whoever the new subject is. Like, she can be anyone. And that's why we're, you know, with Michael and Jason, like, they are always going to be them. If that makes sense.
I also wouldn't mind if there's like a little bit of, I don't know if I want to use the word message, but maybe just like some kind of theme to each one of them. Like, obviously, like the theme about like filling in the blanks, and like, you know, so something else can be there to, you know, for the seemingly insignificant things, so you can take care of the really important things, not realizing that the things that you're kind of disposing of are the most important things. Something like that.
You know what I want?
If each movie can have like an arc like that, I would appreciate it. Yeah,
you know what I want? Because I feel like M3GAN has kind of become this like huge LGBTQ sensation, and just like really like an LGBTQ icon of horror, like the new Babadook. That maybe the sequel can be like a single gay man in his 20s or 30s who like collects dolls. And because it's so niche that we've never seen like anything like that. It's like the Waylon Smithers of just like collecting Barbies or whatever. He's just like gets the M3GAN doll or whatever, just because it's just like, oh, here's this like cute thing of like collectibles. If like, you know, they go the route of just like collectible like toy purchasing. I was going to say collecting again. That's it. That's because I mean, it's always interesting when it's not always the same hero or heroine. Like it's just fun to like play with different types of characters, whether it be different age, different gender, different ethnicity. So yeah, let's explore how M3GAN interacts with and influences all types of people. I want to, if like LGBTQ has like really glommed onto M3GAN as a horror franchise, then like have an entry where just like the final girl is like this like 30-year-old single gay dude who like has nothing else going on in their life but like collecting stuff like M3GAN. That would be hilarious.
That would be. Yeah. And it's just like the emptiness of connecting with things that are made out of like, you know, synthetic material as opposed to like, you know, actual human beings.
Because we even had the scene where when they first came home, or when when Gemma first brought Katie home, and the Alexa or whatever was just like, you have 6 new Tinder matches, and she's just like, later or whatever. So you know, that could be like it's just like, oh, you got some new grinders, or just like this new character coming up. But it's just like because it really focuses on just like sort of the loneliness of whoever the person is that M3GAN is attaching to in whatever movie. So just like, you know, it could be like an elderly lady in the third one, you know, just like I want to see M3GAN. That's what I really want. I don't want them to just do another thing where it's another 10-year-old girl or whatever. I don't want to see them just like rinse and repeat. Like start to explore different areas of society and how like technology like this has really
what other reasons could motivate people to depend on this kind of technology.
Like, just segregated them from like society and having a social life. That's what I want to see. So yeah, give me that single 30 gay man or woman or whomever to have M3GAN come into their life and just be like the thing that that saved them, but then, you know, went on a killing spree because, you know, people wronged them. Oh my God, that's
right.
At this point now, if M3GAN 2 is anything but that, I'm going to be really upset.
Oh, see,
Yeah.
this is why I admire the fanboy and fangirl and fan other, you know, heart. Anybody who's a fan, anything, our ability to kind of weave a best case scenario, a nice direction for a franchise to go in. But I also got to say, we got to leave it at the door and just take what comes, because unless we're creating it, you know, like, and even then you only have so much input as one person.
I know. I'm just so, I guess I'm just so like disenfranchised with screenwriters nowadays. Because I think, like, here's the thing, like, and I feel like I don't have much else to say about the movie, if you don't, so, you know, maybe this can be the final word. Okay. Is that there's been this whole talk, like, you know, we just kind of have been skirting around this, like, this renaissance of horror over the past couple of years, where it's just like horror is back now, like everything is like, this is the best horror has ever been. And in some respects, like, I agree with that. I think that just in terms of like marketing and style and cinematography and direction, like, I think like the genre looks gorgeous. Like, it's never looked so polished, and I don't mean like polished in like a fancy like Scream CW way, but just like it looks like money has been put into it. The only thing why I would say that this is not a horror renaissance that is holding things back has been, and we talked about this last week, the lazy screenwriting. Because I think so many of these movies are exceptional in the way that they look and that they've been delivered to us on a silver platter, but when it really gets to the story, I feel like that's where things go south. And it's not everything, but it's a lot of it, and that's where that's the missing link. And I mean, if I could like magically manifest myself into a screenwriter and like write M3GAN 2 and Scream 7 and like all that shit, like, I would.
Yeah,
but
it's also it's the credit that I seem to feel the least inspired by the people who are doing it. By and large, I don't mean I'm completely disenchanted with all screenwriters, you know, of the horror genre.
I'm sorry if you are a screenwriter and you're listening to this and taking personal offense. It's not directed at
no,
any
of
one
course,
person. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I will say, I walk away from so much content these days really bowled over by acting, really bowled over by direction, and really bowled over by even things like score and production design and cinematography. And it seems like, and even when they're present, practical effects, or even like in movies like this, that's one thing we didn't really touch on, is just like the marriage of things, you know, in the camera, and CGI is put in to just kind of like tweak here and there, which I feel is like when CGI is at its best, when you don't know how much of what you're seeing is CGI. It's harder to discern that when a lot of it is practical, and then they just kind of fix things that don't quite work to kind of like draw the eye more and make it look more authentic. So I think that's another thing that I'll really champion this movie for. But things that I keep walking away from horror movies is thinking, I wish there'd been either more time for this to go through more drafts, or if I know going in that it was rushed through production, if I know going in knowing that it was rushed production, I wish there was more time to go in through more drafts. But if it wasn't, and it just was really, really great at one point, but then the studio just put it through too many hands to try and fix things that didn't need
That's
to
the thing.
be
It's
fixed,
like,
you know?
again, sorry, and I should have mentioned that, like, there's so much studio meddling too. Like, it's not always the screenwriters, but if the studio is just kind of like, it will accept a first draft of something, or they want to make certain changes that they think are better, but, you know, really they're standing in their own way. Which especially with Jason Blum, because the guy, he's got enough money, he's got a fan base. I don't feel bad about saying shit about him, but he has stood in his own way so many times. So
sure, and that's why it's harder to break new ground, because while it is like a renaissance and there is so much content being created and so many different types of perspectives being invited in that might not have been as welcome before for reasons of sex or sexual identity or race or age or whatever it may be. It's nice to see that opening up, yet at the same time so much of what is put out is either like a continuation of a franchise or a requeling of a franchise, a redistribution of ideas, like what worked before, and then the rest of it that isn't like brand new. I mean, nothing's new, but I mean, I can still sit through a movie and feel like, wow, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And I can't do that in movies where the studio or the producers or even the filmmakers are hesitant to take chances to tell new stories because relying on references to things that worked before, they're much more inclined to do that because that's like going to reward fandom, and there are a lot of toxic fans who want to get rewarded for knowing shit rather than learning something for the first time. And that's, hope I don't antagonize anybody with that
Spicy.
statement.
I love it, though. Okay. All right. Let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
All right. First order of business, we need to choose a cherry on top, as always. And I think I already kind of intimated where I felt things were going, because we don't really have any strict rules for things. And when it comes to the cherry on top, and I think M3GAN is definitely the cherry on top.
Yeah, I will second that. She works for me in this movie, and through
for
everyone concerned, she works,
Yeah.
girl. WERKS, but the reason she WORKS for me in this movie, I think, is also in no small part due to Amy Donald, who did the body work for her. She's the one who even did the dance moves and stuff like that. She's a little gymnast. She's got bronze and silver medals and shit. So
great trivia.
Good for her. And Jenna Davis as the voice, kind of unforgettable, and always had me leaning forward, like to see like what she was going to say next and everything. And a lot of that is the screenwriting, so good for them. But as far as her delivery, the two of them and whatever work the team did in post to like, just kind of tweak her and make her more alive, I feel like it was all successful, and I was always looking forward to what's M3GAN gonna do now. So yeah, I agree. Cherry on top.
Awesome.
Totally.
All right. Last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Scream 5. I nominated Deputy Vincent, and you nominated Liv McKenzie. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the total tally came to 921 for Deputy Vincent versus 345 for Liv McKenzie.
Oh, thanks, guys.
That was because I looked, and when it gets to a certain amount of votes, like I think once it gets to 1,000, it just says like 1K. So I didn't have the exact number on. Like it would have been like between 1,000 and 1,100. So it was just like, okay, it got to a point where I couldn't even accurately figure out what the difference was. But it was a landslide. Let's see what the good people had to say. Kayla Henderson, I voted for Vincent. He left his post, which ended up putting Dewey in the hospital. That led to his death. I'm still mad at how he died.
Okay.
Yeah. DP says, I am going with Deputy V because I cannot get out of my mind what Zack pointed out in Judy's text messages regarding his forgetfulness of certain reports. That, in addition to just being as useless as a wet paper towel, really should cost him. I don't think what DP is referencing, because I didn't bring that up in the podcast that we did, but I know that I think it was like in one of my videos on YouTube. where I was ranking the characters. Sorry, another ranking thing. But I'd always had him as the worst character. And there was a scene in the Judy Hicks car where she gets the call from the killer and she's texting one of her deputies to put a trace on it. And we can see the text messages that she already had with this deputy. And like right above it, she says something about, she's like, oh, did you do those files or whatever? And they're just like, well, no, that was Vincent's job. And he didn't do it or something. So it's just like already showing like they had the mindfulness, like the creative team, to put in like small details that this guy just sucks at his job. So it's not just imagined on our part, like he literally does suck.
Okay.
Yeah. Taylor Klug. I'm so excited for this one. Absolutely love 5 Cream. Excellent, but you know, but we need you to kill someone. Dylan Jameson.
Yeah, kill someone.
Dylan Jameson, Vincent all the way. The guy is one of the worst cops in the franchise, filled with bad cops. He literally left his post, which in turn leads to Dewey going with Sam to the hospital, which leads to Dewey's death. So he got my vote. I feel like a lot of people, I feel like that's what it was. It's just like people are putting Dewey's death on him. So maybe that's why I won here. Itsy Benny. Gotta go with Vincent on this one. Liv was a bit of a plank, but Vincent leaving the hospital caused major problems and gave Ghostface easy access to Tara, causing the death of one of the franchise's most important and loved characters. He needs to go. The cherry has been picked. Keep it up, guys. Love the pod. Thank you.
Aw, thanks.
Thank you. Jeremy Huff. Vincent left his post and not only put Tara in danger and got the deputy guarding her killed. Yeah, don't forget about that. Poor soul. But also got Dewey killed. The trio were going to start getting killed at some point, but it could have been prevented a bit longer. It's like Dewey wouldn't have died at the hospital, but he might have died at the house later on, you know. Robert Holston says the actor that played Vincent also played Richardson in Hot Rod. He gets to live just for that.
Oh,
Hot.
Okay.
You know what Hot Rod is? That Andy Samberg?
The Andy Samberg movie?
Yeah, I never seen it.
All I remember is Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg. Mandejo says, as someone in the army, first general order, I will guard everything within the limits of my post and quit my post when properly relieved. Come on, Vincent. Michael Begley. Liv. Her character was just 2-0. Also, edit here. Since you guys are talking about 5 Cream, I'd love to know who both of your favorite characters are from the new cast joining the franchise. I get like the new cast of Scream 5.
That's what I assume he's saying.
I mean, this was posted 4 days ago. I don't know if we mentioned it in the episode, but I think, Jenna Ortega as a cast, like as an actor, I think was the best casting choice. But like in terms of character, because I feel like she was kind of underdeveloped. This is where I would tip the scales for Sam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I just wanted to say, like, I feel like I kind of relate to her. Like I get her, you know, like, you know, we were talking about, you know, some of the things with her character, just like how she's misunderstood. Like I respect that. I hope that there's a Sam-assance.
That we get to really enjoy her, kind of like Rachel with Halloween 5. Like, you know, like now you get to be the sister we were all waiting for you to be in Halloween 4. Yeah,
I think most people like cool. Rachel in Halloween 4 though.
I think they do too, but I don't walk into that movie liking her. You know how I feel about her that first half of the movie. It's once she like kind of defines herself as like, yes, I am ready to commit as your sister. I'm ready to walk you through as many situations as I can to try and protect you.
Yeah.
You know, but everything about the like, you know, we're not sister. You know. Just,
Okay. Well,
oh God.
we'll save that.
Anyway, that part's coming. But anyway, I'll never be tired of discussing that movie. But I think for me, Tara's up there, but so is Mindy in a big way. I really love seeing what more. Like we know we got introduced to her, we got a taste. I want more. So I think Mindy and Tara are the strongest ones for me. Tara for the drama, Mindy for the humor. Yeah, and
going for the Mind. All right, excellent. Vixenella Pops. That's a great name. Definitely Depp Vinson. He left his post, putting Tara in danger and ultimately leading to Dewey's death. Joker JAK. Vincent. Even though I think Dewey had the coolest death in the franchise, Vincent shouldn't have left the hospital. Also, I liked Liv. She could have used more screen time, though.
Okay, I disagree.
Love Ghostface says you should review The Menu 2022 and Fresh 2022. Okay. You never know what might show up here. Jennifer Armstrong says that deputy had a good reason, but I still can't believe he left Tara. And then Dark02588. Damn, didn't realize it just posted and I was the first vote. There you go.
Oh.
That's always a fun sensation. being the first vote. Green Hair 77 says, Vincent, Dewey's blood is on his hands. Amber and Richie could be nominated for a special cherry picker for worst Ghostface. Wow. I agree. I feel like if you had chosen Richie or Amber, I would have just automatically chosen the other one.
Oh, okay.
I would have hoped that you would pick Richie just so I could like be the representative of like the anti-Amber. This is okay. This is actually a good opportunity to bring this up because I was one of our listeners, Mikey Aspinwall. Yes, Aspinwall. Oh, okay. Mikey Aspinwall. He'll like give feedback on the episodes after he listens to them, and he'll always like give very like in-depth responses and just like, you know, very appreciative of like how we cover everything, and it's not just like kind of like I hated this movie or whatever, but because we just the Scream 5 one released today as we're recording M3GAN here, and he was bringing up all this like interesting stuff that I didn't really like take into consideration about our ghost faces, and just how you know, he liked that like the fact that they were sloppy killers worked for them, and he liked how it was this thing of like one of them is a millennial with Richie and another is a Gen Z with Amber, and they're both kind of like highlighted by just being extremely entitled to their opinions, and that made me consider something that I'm glad I'm getting to like talk about this now. Like I wish I had mentioned it on the Scream 5 podcast, but what would have been so good with those killers if what they had done, because every duo that we've seen have like turned on each other except for Amber and Richie, and not necessarily that they had to turn on each other, but what would have been great is if they get into the kitchen and they're like really in the thick of it, and they're just like, you know, there hasn't been a good Stab movie since the first one, but then Richie says, except I do really like Stab 2, and then Amber is just like, well, no, Stab 5 or like whatever, that's the best sequel. And then they start getting into it. Meanwhile, like Sydney is just like, okay, now I'm going to like whisk everyone away while they're distracted.
That would have been hilarious.
And that would have like highlighted the toxic fandom, because that's what it comes down to. It's just like arguing about the sequels. And then eventually they would have like reconciled when they just like agreed that, well, part 8 or Stab 8 is the worst, so we can agree on that. And then like, oh, it's too late, Sydney's got the knife or whatever. They didn't even, that even could have just been in there, even if like Sydney didn't get the upper hand. Like just a moment to show really how toxic the fandom is in that.
That would have been funny. And poignant. Yeah. I agree.
So yeah, anyway, thank you so much like to Mikey for all of his well thought out responses and just allowing me to realize that. So getting back to the Green Hair 77, Amber and Richie could have been nominated for special cherry picker for worst ghost faces. Because I mean, like, I don't know what your ranking is, but I certainly hate them. So anyway,
I mean, are we? There's so many questions about ranking them though, because I'm just like, do we have to stick with canon and we can't have like my little head canon that I play with when I watch Scream 3, thinking there are 2 ghost faces?
We'll save it for the Scream 6 podcast.
All right.
Because then we'll obviously have more, like another killer or more to add to the ranks. But moving on here, Walter Sixsmith says Liv is almost more of a non-character than this other guy. LOL, I choose her. Suki Akari 1203. Vincent, first chance he got, he ditched his post. Blue Box 87. Vincent for giving useless cop a whole new meaning. Liv was just horny and didn't even get some. She might have. You never know.
We don't know.
Shannon Ludi, as annoying and useless as Liv was, my vote absolutely goes to Vincent. He left his post and is partly to blame for Dewey's death. David Lewis, Vincent, he left his post. Smack my head. SB, what the hell did Liv even do? Question mark. Do you
listen to the pod? I said it. I made my case. I'm not making it anymore.
Yeah. Well, this was posted before they listened to it, but fair enough.
Okay.
Fair
Hopefully
enough.
I hope they listened. All right.
Desiree Perez says Liv because she didn't do anything. She was too stupid. Her character was just there to die. TBH. And when she finally got killed, nobody really cared. LMAO.
Yeah.
And why didn't she want to share her location with Chad?
I mean, that's a big question.
Honestly, like the directors didn't even care because they forgot to like have the blood splatter on the wall. That I will never live that down. I'm sorry. Matthias Egaman. Liv did nothing. Vincent didn't do his job. Vincent's work is to keep people safe, and he didn't. Anderson Frazier. Can we vote for the bartender that kicked everyone out of the bar instead? She was way too dramatic.
You can vote her
I don't know.
for whoever you want.
I've worked in bars and, shit's going to start. I mean, like, normally, like, the solution isn't to just, like, take it outside, and, like, go kill each other out there. Like, there would actually be some sort of diffusion. So I can see, in that regard, but she's even more of a non-character than these two, so... Yeah. Lopi Robinson. Cop left his post, leading to severe consequences. As annoying as Liv may be to some, that's not enough for death. LMFAO. John Carlos McMaster. Vince Schneider was more deserving than both Vincent and Liv.
Oh.
A lot of people are just kind of taking liberties in nominating a third. And I do not agree with that, John Carlos, because I think that, what's his name? Vince. All these characters, Vince, Vincent, Vince Schneider, or Kyle Gallner, he should have been in the movie more.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, if anything, he should have gotten the reverse cherry picker of just, like, let him live a little longer, like when you get Kyle Gallner in your movie, you like take advantage of that.
That's true. Yeah. I agree with that.
IS Kamdzik. I'm so sorry. I there's a lot of symbols above letters that I don't know how to pronounce that. So I tried my best. Love Liv, hate that cop. His carelessness made me so annoyed by him.
Love Liv? All right.
Love Liv. Love Liv. Just imagine her like writing love letters to Chad. Just like love Liv. Rob Rangel. I voted Liv because I was left wanting more from her character, and she was ultimately there to fill out the body count. Kirsty Campbell, Deputy Vincent clearly needed to go to Sheriff Hicks's house. The sheriff has been murdered and he is next in charge. Big dumb move to not have someone replace him at the hospital while he was on his way to Hicks's house. But let's be honest, any police officer, even if it was Vincent, would have been killed at the hospital by Ghostface too. I voted Liv as she bugged me a lot. Love the actress and I wanted more from her character.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the actress, so maybe I
haven't
am.
seen her in anything else. Yeah. Sucked, says Vincent, because Liv is way too underrated. She reminded me of Tatum in Scream 1996. She's that good of a character. I don't know if that's
really
sarcasm, but I personally don't agree.
Or is it sincere?
Yeah.
Huh. I can see that warrants another conversation. Like, okay, why?
Yeah.
Explain. I'm interested why.
Yeah. Thomas Baker, Deputy Vincent was so stupid I wanted him to die more. Tyker Vic says Vincent is ass at his job. I was hoping for a death scene for him like Perkins and Haas from Scream 4. Absolutely. If Adam Brody is, getting killed for, his stupid shenanigans, this guy deserves it too. Silent Saturn, Deputy Vincent, yet another useless cop in the long-running tradition of useless cops in horror films. Liv, I like at least for the punchline of simply being too boring, and so she was. Seriously though, guys, how was Dewey not the cherry on top? He wasn't even considered, and this was his last chance. I don't know. I always feel like Dewey's second fiddle, and that's kind of like his charm. He's always playing for second,
Didn't I bring him up though? I thought didn't I bring him up as a contender? I thought I did, but if I didn't, I meant to. Maybe I just didn't.
I was listening back today.
I thought this was our last chance.
I think I don't recall that. I just remember like Sydney was brought. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I we both jumped at the chance for Sydney to get it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Ghostface Gremlin. Too bad Mindy isn't an option, so I guess Vincent. Ooh, how does that sit for you? Yeah. All right. Winter Wonder 99. Vincent, definitely one of the dumbest and most annoying characters in the franchise. Liv is too irrelevant to really hate. And then finally, Mega Super Spud, Deputy Hot Man. Because he was useless and gives me gay thoughts.
I mean, you can unpack the rest of that all on your own, kid.
Yeah.
Good for you. For
Deputy
just
Hotman.
admitting the truth first and foremost. Yeah, Deputy Hotman. I mean, I get that too. Sure, why not?
All right,
so that means
now. Yeah, I forgot we're talking about Megan here. So there were a lot of comments there that did take a little bit of time. So actually, let me just go to the IMDb here because I don't know this character's name, but I've already referenced them, and just to be, is it Lydia? Was that the therapist? It just says Lydia.
I don't know her name.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tentatively say therapist. It might be Lydia.
Okay.
I'll have to do more research into that. But yeah, for the reasons I said, just being like, bad at her job and just like not real, like almost like she went in there and just like, I'm not here. Don't like just act as you normally would. But then literally giving instruction the whole time and judgy leers and all that shit. And the fact that she didn't die. I mean, the one thing, like I mentioned, is the fact that she did have the presence of mind to point out that, this probably isn't good in the long run. But by that point, I felt like it was too late, and her just being there warranted the added, like, body to the pile of bodies that we never got. So that's why I'm going with her.
Okay. Huh. I have a rough decision to make because I had two options and I thought, okay, if he picks one of these, which I know he must, and of course I was wrong, now I have to choose between my two options. Damn it.
What did you think I was going to
pick? Who
pick?
deserves... No, I didn't. It was either one of my two options. But okay, so I have to think who's worse. Who deserves to die the most? Okay, it's potentially alienating because it is a child, but I am going to go with Brandon. I couldn't wait for that little shit to die. Not just get hurt. I wanted him dead. And everything that M3GAN said about him after the fact, about how I think it was after the fact, about how bad boys grow up to be bad men or something like that. And I was just kind of like, I would have a real hard time arguing with her at this point. If I lived within the movie, within the reality of the movie, and this were actually going on, I would be like, okay, but that doesn't give you the right to take a life. He should have... First of all, he shouldn't have been there. There should have been other things at work. But because it's a movie and because she did that cool crawl thing where she's just like kind of go,
you should run now.
Go, after him. Oh my God. I fucking love that. Because that was actually scary. Like there was a threat there. The fact that she pulled his ear off was a great start. And I'm glad it didn't end there. Yeah. But I'm glad that she also didn't kill him. Like she just put him in a situation where he was primed to get hit by a car. Lethally, and I'm like fatally, and I'm like, okay, great, one less to worry about now. Because the other person who I had, just because of his neglect, was poor Katie's father. Just because it's like, who the fuck in a snowstorm is gonna just sit there in the middle of the road? Were you shocked when you got struck by that fucking oncoming car with your whole family in it, like in the middle of a snowstorm, you dumb butt? You didn't even know about snow chains before you drove out. Like who are you? So he annoyed me, but I do think Brandon probably deserved to die most because, again, the father, uber neglectful, but Brandon was full on sadistic.
All right.
And that turns the corner from neglectful and makes it even worse, because the intention of being hurt by someone who didn't know what the fuck they were doing and it should have been paying better attention, that sucks. But being hurt by someone whose intention is to hurt you, oh, that makes me angry. That brings out the rage. That brings out that Old Testament. Yeah, eye for an eye shit. Anyway, so there you go. That's my
okay. I'm surprised you thought that I would have picked the father. I didn't even think of him after the fact.
The whole thing is his fault. The whole movie is his fault. It's one of those things where
you don't think that M3GAN was going to get made anyway? Okay.
I don't think she would have gotten made with that extra motive in Gemma's heart to kind of create a quasi family for a child. I think before that, she was just a toy in theory. But then when she realized she can be so much more than that, she can sit in for me as a guardian. She can help my niece process her pain. She can do without figuring any of kind of the bad consequences, the negative consequences as a result. So I blame him.
Okay.
I blame him for the whole movie.
All right. Okay. Well, those are your options. You can pick. I forget her name already. Was it Lydia or something?
Lydia,
the therapist, or the bully, Brandon. And you can vote on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at the Cherry Picker Pod. So follow us there. You can also vote in the community section on YouTube. That is the Cherry Picker. Subscribe to us there. If you are listening on regular podcast, you can also see us. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us on streaming. We're on all of them, I think. I'm sure we are. So the RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. I would also like to thank a slew of new Patreon supporters. So welcome to Armin Dodick, Kaznil21, Ryan Davis, Kristen Da Silva, Cassandra Shipley, M. Culbreth, Marisa, Jamie Allred, Maddie Eaton, Astoria, Jonathan Cardoso, Skylar Broussard, Justin O'Hearn, Dimitri Carter, Matt Kreider, Dominic Turilli, Leighton Forshner, and Jason Town.
Yay!
Welcome!
Welcome! Awesome parade.
And you can also vote on Patreon if you are supporting over there. That is my Patreon account. And if you are supporting on Patreon, you do get access to all of our episodes much earlier than they are released regularly. Also, if you are supporting on the Freddy Krueger tier of my Patreon, you will get to see our Cherry Picker After Dark, which is our bonus monthly episode. This month we're doing... What are we doing?
The things that are wild, right?
Yeah, the Wild Things with Nev Campbell, everyone's favorite. So if you would like to get that extra content or early access support over there, we would really appreciate it. And I also do want to thank Andre Felix, our editor, for making these episodes look so spectacular on YouTube. Thank you so much. And what else do we... Oh, yeah. Socials. Where can they find you?
You can find me at Edward is Truth, all one word, on the Instagram. And if you'll search for it on the YouTube, you'll find my movie reactions. How about you, Zack Cherry?
When was the last time you made a movie reaction?
I don't know. It's been a minute.
You're like bringing up a sore subject. You can find me on YouTube, Zack Cherry, ZackCherry, and Instagram at RetroBitchFace, all one word, and Twitter at ZackCherry8. Anyway, what's going on next week?
It's the thing with the Dern of the Dude, right?
The Dern of the Day.
The Dern of the Dude when they're on tomorrow.
The Dawn
All the
of the Day.
zombies go to the mirror.
Yes.
The original one, not the remake.
It's like the Gershbergs.
Oh no! Oh my gosh! Goosebumps!
Oh my god! Dern of the Dirt! And yes, it is
it's made by George Romero, right? George Romero's Dern of the Dirt.
And
it's about the zombies at the mirror. Consumerism in America.
Yeah. Another consumerism themed movie.
Ooh.
But yes, the original. So that's happening next week, and we're gonna talk all about it. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.